and rum. One day the tonguing is done, take our leave and go. At a fair in the sun of town, her hair was blonde and this was brown. She made a whaler man come around.
This is Cumberland Rover. My name is Billy the Skid. Welcome back to Skid Files, my summer side project. This channel is mainly focused on building and sailing small wooden boats, but lately I've been mixing it up with a little DIY skimboard fun. In the first video, I built 3 plywood boards to test and compare. I was simultaneously learning to ride a skimboard at that time, but my skateboarding experience gave me a little bit of a head start. I discovered that building a plywood skimboard is ridiculously cheap, easy, and fun. And skimboarding is really not that hard if you can already ride a skateboard. But seriously, it's actually nowhere near as hard to learn as skateboarding. In the second video, I side-slipped into the world of commercial boards, ordering a fiberglass Deluxe 51 from the Ron John Surf Shop. After a couple weeks on the Ron John, I began to understand the importance of volume for skimboards. Volume creates float, which allows a board to slide further and stay up better. DIY plywood boards are fun to build and ride, but they're kind of sinkers. I started to wonder if there was some way to get more float for the DIY builder. It would require making the board thicker while also keeping weight to a minimum. Considering that many glass boards have a foam core and soft top surfboards and bodyboards are foam topped, I wondered if polystyrene insulation board might do the trick. It's pretty dense, lightweight, and waterproof. It can be cut cleanly with a jigsaw, shaped with a belt sander, and sanded smooth by hand. Because a skimboard will always contact sand and rocks to some degree, the bottom would need to be hard. The foam was also not rigid enough on its own, so my idea was to use foam for the body of the board and 5mm plywood for the bottom. A solid cedar stringer would provide stiffness and set rocker. The whole idea was that the increased thickness of the foam would increase the volume of the board, giving it more float and allowing me to slide further and stay up better over deep water. I began by gathering my materials: a sheet of Styrofoam ST100 foam board, about 0.8 of an inch thick, a sheet of 5mm Revolution ply, and a 5/8 cedar fence picket. I also selected a box of number 6 by 3/4 inch stainless screws, Titan Tybon wood glue, and a foam board compatible adhesive. Stand by for more on the adhesive later. For now, suffice it to say that I should have stuck with good old reliable Loctite PL Premium instead of what I used. I settled on an extra large fish shape, bigger than any commercial skimboard I'm aware of, 22 by 52 inches. The idea was to maximize volume and length for long slides carried over deeper water. My fiberglass Ron John board is a great all-around board, but with this new foamy, I was trying to build a sort of longboard skimboard contraption. After removing the plastic film, the foam board was cut slightly oversized to allow some wiggle room when installing the stringer. It can be easily sanded flush with the bottom ply later. Please note, in addition to safety glasses, you should definitely wear a respirator when sanding or cutting polystyrene or any synthetic material. The dust created can be harmful, and not just in California. I'm pretty sure it's harmful everywhere. Sawn out of a cedar fence picket to match the thickness of the foam, this stringer is the backbone of the board, stiffening it and shaping the nose rocker. Rocker is the curve on the bottom of a boat or board. Some boards have nose and tail rocker, some have a constant curve throughout. This one is dead flat from the tail to just a few inches aft of the nose where the curve begins. Rocker improves maneuverability and prevents the nose from plowing. In this case, I don't want too much rocker, as a flatter board should slide further, and that's the goal here, to make a board specifically for sliding far. After drilling pilot holes through the plywood bottom, the stringer is installed with tight bond glue and number 6 by 3/4 stainless screws. Green top Tight Bond 3 is best for boats and boards as it's fully waterproof, but water resistant blue top Tight Bond 2 seems to work fine for most projects. I would avoid red top, it's for interior projects only. With the stringer fastened to the plywood bottom, I cut a recess in the foam for clearance. I knew it could be tricky getting everything lined up. That's why the foam was cut slightly larger than the ply. It can be easily shaped to match with the belt sander after the two sections are joined. I also learned that the stringer clearance slot should be on the loose side. Trying to force a tight fit between the foam and stringer can break the foam. Next, the foam was glued to the plywood bottom and a strip of 5mm ply glued to the foam and screwed to the stringer. This thin strip of ply binds the assembly tightly together in a foam board sandwich and further stiffens the board. Based on testing a few different adhesives after the fact, Loctite PL Premium is probably the best option as far as construction glues. What I actually used for this project was Gorilla Heavy Duty, the one with the white nozzle, and despite being recommended for foam board, it had basically zero adhesion to this particular foam. The glue stuck to the wood just fine, so the deck strip was firmly set, which meant there was no chance of removing the foam in one piece to make a proper repair. I ended up using Gorilla Heavy Duty with the orange nozzle, squirted under the seam, just enough to hold the rails to the bottom. This was basically a last-ditch attempt to salvage the board, and luckily the fix worked well enough to save the board, but not great. I thought maybe I had made a mistake. Perhaps I hadn't worked fast enough and the glue had begun to set up. So later I tested both Gorilla adhesives and PL Premium on separate pieces of foam, each clamped firmly overnight. The white top Gorilla pulled off easily by hand with no adhesion. Orange top did adhere, but I was still able to separate the piece from the wood. The PL held tight and I couldn't even pull it off, so PL Premium is by far the best choice of the three based on my testing. It was then time to shape the rails. First, with 80 grit on the belt sander, I sanded the overhanging foam flush with the bottom. Then I made a hard bevel all the way around the board and rounded off the rails, sanding by hand. The bottom edge of the board is left hard, sanded just enough to remove any splinters or sharpness. Finally, she was ready for paint. I used exterior acrylic house paint on all my wooden boats with good success, mainly because it's cheap and relatively non-toxic. But in this case, acrylic is actually the best option. Unlike solvent-based paints, acrylic will not damage polystyrene. Now it was finally time to do some testing. Down at my favorite creek spot, the stick was rigged and ready to shred. having to drop the board a little bit further down the sandbar than normal because the water's just down a few inches. But I can tell I'm sliding so much further on this big board. This root ball that was not a hazard before is kind of giving me some problems. I have nearly crashed into this thing several times now, so I've got to be careful. Well, I think the test footage kind of speaks for itself. The foam fish was a success. It could slide way further than my 1/4-inch plywood board and quite a bit further than the fiberglass Ron John. Most exciting though is the promise shown by this method of ply foam hybrid construction. It works great and there's much more to be explored with this material. Layers of foam could be glued together or thicker 2-inch foam could be used. There are endless possibilities for board shape, dimensions, and volume. If you've enjoyed my skimboarding videos, there's good news. More are on the way. I've had a blast with this summer side project and intend to keep it going for a while. Well, at least until I get burnt out or the water gets too cold. In the meantime, if you're new to the channel, you may want to check out my boat building videos. That's mainly what I do here, build and sail small wooden boats. I even have plans available for my designs. Most of my designs are bare bones simple and very beginner friendly. Plans for my 12-foot solo P-row and 16-foot pelican punt are linked in the description of this video. Thank you for your support and thanks for watching.